Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Simpson, and I look forward to having this book talk with you today. I brought Leo Leone's Inch by Inch with me this afternoon. I love Inch by Inch for kindergartners and first graders. There's great tier 2 vocabulary, like words like emerald and measured, escape, nightingale song. It's just terrific vocabulary for them to be exposed to. I also like the math concepts that can be used for extended activities. So, Inch by Inch is about this little inchworm you see in the illustration. And this inchworm is on the menu for an afternoon snack for many birds: toucan, nightingale, flamingo, robin, heron. So he has to get out of these sticky predicaments, and he does it simply by measuring. And he's able to inch out of sight. Leo Leone published this book in 1960. It was published through HarperCollins Publishing Company. It's just a great book. It's fiction, fantasy, because the birds have conversations with the inchworm in the book. It's just, it's a pleasure read. The students enjoy it year after year. So for my activities, I decided to really base this off a kindergarten classroom, and the way that I would implement this in kindergarten definitely is going to be different than if I were implementing it in an upper grade level. So my pre-reading activity just would begin with a snippet of the book. I would not tell my students everything, the summary I just gave you about the inchworm. I would just give them very simply the statement: this tiny inchworm is on the menu for a snack for many birds. Will he be their next meal? I just want to grab them with engagement. And so before I started reading the book to them, we would do a picture carousel where I would let them look at the pictures of each one of the birds. And then I would survey. Tell me, yes or no, will the inchworm be a bird snack? And I would give them a little post-it, let them write Y for yes, N for no, depending on what part of the year it is. Beginning year, we may do a happy face, sad face. Mid-year, we may write, or I should probably say like mid first semester, we would write a Y or an N. And then, of course, second semester, we would be very familiar with the words yes or no because they're high frequency words. And then they would go post their response to our classroom graph. And so you can just see in my little PowerPoint here where I just had snippets of the birds, so you can see I just want to get them engaged, and I want them to start thinking about what is going to happen in the book. And let's compare the size here. Does size really have to do anything with planning? So I want them to think that way. Okay. My jury reading activity, I would tell them before we began reading that we're going to participate in a shared writing activity. And this shared writing activity is going to be a literature map. I would have the map already prepared on a large chart. I would have each one of the birds, these are all the birds. You've already saw pictures of these birds that the inchworm is going to meet through our story. And what we're going to do is we're going to document what the inchworm does every time he meets one of these birds. And so we would just take a quick jot note. He measured, I'm trying to think, what did he do with the robin? He measures the robin's tail. I wanted to say he measured the song, but that was a nightingale song he measured. So I would just write measured song, measured tail, and we would go through each one of these and just document it as we go through reading the book. All right, and then my post-reading activity at the end is I would ask the post-reading question: what happened to the inchworm at the end of the story? Before that, when we finished reading the book, I would go back to our literature map, our shared writing activity, and we would just discuss each thing that the inchworm did to prevent being eaten. And then I would ask them the question, what happened to the inchworm at the end of the story? And from there, I would send them to their seats where they would do a student sketch. Now, I took a kindergarten approach with the student sketch because they're kindergartners. So they would simply just illustrate what happened at the end of the story, because that is my outcome. It's my outcome for this um, whole reading. This read aloud is I want the students to be able to tell me what happened at the end of the story. And so in order to do that, we're going to scaffold throughout the story. So they will go to their seats, they will write, draw a picture, and then I would pull them back to small groups, and we would compare their classroom graph to their illustrations. So the illustrations going to serve as my formative assessment. Were they able to tell me what happened at the end of the story? And then we would just have a good small group discussion about the entire story. For an extension activity, I would bring in some math. We're going to measure items in our classrooms using these gummy worms. We would measure a gummy worm, see if it's an inch. If it's not an inch, maybe we cut our worms to an inch, and then we start measuring items in our classroom. Just have that discussion. I chose these activities for this book, as I mentioned earlier, because it scaffolds. It just kind of builds to my outcome. It keeps the students engaged. They're actively engaged. They're a part of this oral reading. They're a part of the conversation. I believe that research-based activities are the best opportunities for students to learn. Well, number one, they're research, so there's some science behind the way that students learned. And then also, it's withdrawing that support. We have heavy support and we're slowly withdrawing. We're giving the students the strategies that they need to be successful by the end of the lesson. And then we have that formative assessment where we can do our yes and no's. Yes, they were able to perform. No, they were not. They did not meet the outcome. And then we can bring in that tier 2 from there. I hope that you enjoyed my book talk. I hope that you will decide to read inch by inch, especially if you're a kinder or a first grade teacher. And have a good afternoon. Thank you.